The ship was dying. Captain Cole knew it the moment the alarm started screaming and red lights filled the cockpit. The Wanderer was a good ship, reliable for 10 years of survey missions across the outer rim. But something had gone very wrong with the engine, and now was falling toward a planet he knew nothing about. He pulled hard on the controls, trying to slow the descent. The ship shook violently. Through the viewport, he could see green forests and blue rivers rushing up toward him. At least there was life down there. At least he would not die on a dead rock. The crash was brutal. The Wanderer tore through trees, bounced off a hillside, and finally came to rest in a clearing near a wide river. Hung in his seat, held by the safety straps, breathing hard. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His left arm hurt badly, probably broken, but he was alive. It took him an hour to free himself from the wreckage and assess his situation. The ship would never fly again. The engine was completely destroyed. The communication equipment was damaged beyond repair. He had emergency supplies, food packets, water purification tablets, a medical kit, and basic survival gear. Enough to last maybe 2 months if he was careful. It still worked, and he found the planet in the old Galactic Union records. What he read made his stomach drop. The planet was flagged as Class 7 hostile, avoid. There was no explanation, no details about what made it dangerous, just a simple warning that no ship should land here. Too late for that now. He set up camp near the river, using pieces of the ship's hull to build a simple shelter. The forest around him was beautiful but strange. The trees had silver bark and leaves that glowed faintly blue at night. Strange creatures moved in the shadows, things with too many legs, things with wings, things that watched him with curious eyes before disappearing into the undergrowth. Worked through the pain in his arm, binding it tight against his chest. He was a survivor. 20 years in the Survey Corps had taught him how to stay alive in hostile environments. He would find a way off this planet. He just needed time. On his third night, sat by a small fire, heating a packet of emergency rations. The food was not good, a tasteless paste that provided nutrition but no pleasure. Still, it was warm, and the familiar act of cooking brought him some comfort. The twin moons of this world hung in the sky, casting silver light across the clearing. He was about to take his first bite when he heard something that made him freeze completely. A voice inside his head. "What is that smell?" Looked around wildly, his heart pounding. There was nothing there, just shadows and trees and the gentle sound of the river. "Is it food? It smells like food." Another voice now, different from the first, higher, more excited. "Can we eat your leftovers, strange creature?" Slowly turned toward the edge of the clearing. His hand moved to the small knife at his belt, the only weapon he had managed to save from the crash. His eyes searched the darkness. 3 pairs of eyes stared back at him. They glowed faintly, like embers from a dying fire. The creature stepped into the light of his campfire and felt his breath catch in his throat. They were reptilian, covered in scales that shimmered in shades of red and gold. They had wings folded against their backs, long tails and snouts filled with small sharp teeth. They were about the size of large dogs, and they moved with a curious, bouncing energy. They were dragons, baby dragons. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run. Dragons were legends in the galaxy, ancient creatures of immense power, feared by every spacefaring species. The Galactic Union had treaties and laws about dragon territories, entire sectors of space that were forbidden because dragons lived there. And now 3 baby dragons were looking at his dinner with hungry eyes. "You are strange," one of them said directly into his mind. This one had scales that were darker than the others, almost black at the edges. "We have never seen a creature like you." "What are you?" asked another, this one bright orange with curious golden eyes. "Where did you come from?" The third one, smaller than the others with pale red scales, did not speak. It just stared at its food packet with obvious longing. Swallowed hard. His mind raced through everything he knew about dragons. They were telepathic, that much was clearly true. They were dangerous. They were protective of their territory. And they were, according to every record he had ever read, impossible to reason with. But these were Bobby's, and they looked hungry. Against every survival instinct screaming at him, made a decision. He looked at his food packet, then at the three young dragons. They were thin, he noticed now. Their ribs showed slightly under their scales. Wherever their mother was, she had not fed them recently. He slowly, carefully, held out the food packet toward them. "You can have it," he said out loud, not knowing if they would understand his words or just his thoughts. "I have more. You need it more than I do." The three dragons looked at each other in what seemed like surprise. Then the smallest one, the pale red one, crept forward carefully. It sniffed the food packet, then took it gently from his hand. Its teeth were sharp, but it did not bite him. "You share." The dark-scaled one sounded confused. "You give food freely, without trade, without demand." "Yes," said simply. "You're hungry, I have food, it's not complicated." The three dragons ate the food packet quickly, making small sounds of pleasure. When they finished, they looked at with new eyes, not as a strange creature or a potential threat, but as something they had never encountered before. "No creature has ever shared with us before," the orange one said. "Other species run from us, or try to fight us, or offer tribute in fear, but you just gave." Shrugged, then winced as the movement hurt his injured arm. "Where I come from, we feed hungry children. That's just what we do." The three young dragons moved closer to his fire, settling down around it as if they belonged there. The smallest one curled up near his feet, radiating gentle warmth. "What are you called, sharing creature?" the dark one asked. "I'm Cole, I'm a human." Human? The word echoed strangely in his mind, repeated by all three voices. "We will remember this word. We will remember you, Cole the human who shares." As the twin moons crossed the sky and the fire burned low, sat surrounded by baby dragons who had decided he was worth knowing. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a quiet voice told him that his life had just changed forever. He had no idea how right that voice was. The baby dragons came back the next morning, woke to find all three of them sitting outside his shelter, watching him with patient eyes. The smallest one, whom had started calling Spark in his mind, chirped happily when he emerged. "You are awake, we brought you something." The orange dragon, whom thought of as Ember, pushed something toward him with her snout. It was a fish, a large silver fish from the river, still fresh. The dark-scaled one, Ash, sat back and watched with what looked like pride. "We hunted for you," Ash explained. "You shared your food with us. Now we share our food with you. This is fair, yes." Felt something warm spread through his chest. These creatures, these supposedly terrifying dragons, had brought him breakfast. He smiled, the first real smile since his crash. "Thank you," he said. "This is very fair." That day began a pattern that would continue for the next 2 weeks. The dragons visited every morning and stayed until nightfall. They watched with fascination as he went about his survival tasks, purifying water, building better shelter, treating his injured arm, trying to repair his equipment. "Why do you build things?" Ember asked one afternoon, watching weave branches into a wall for his shelter. "Why not just find a cave?" "Humans like to make our own spaces," explained. "We change our environment to suit us, rather than changing ourselves to suit the environment." "That is strange," Spark said, tilting her small head, "but also clever." The dragons were endlessly curious about him. They had never seen a human before. In fact, they had never seen most of the galaxy. They had been born on this world and had never left it. Their knowledge of other species came entirely from their mother's stories and from the occasional ship that passed too close to their planet and was warned away. "Mother says the galaxy is full of fearful creatures," Ash told one evening. "She says they build weapons and armies. They fight over resources. They destroy each other for power." Some do, admitted, not all. Mother says humans are a young species, small, unimportant. She says the great powers of the galaxy do not even notice you. Laughed softly at that. She's not wrong. Humanity only started exploring the stars about 200 years ago. We have a few dozen colonies, a small fleet. The Galactic Union barely acknowledges we exist. But you came here, Ember pointed out. You fly between stars, you explore. That is not nothing. I suppose not. The dragons taught things too. They showed him which plants were safe to eat and which would make him sick. They led him to clean springs and warned him about dangerous creatures in the forest. Spark, despite being the smallest, was the best hunter, and she often brought extra food when she caught more than she could eat. Learned that their true name for themselves were far more than simple animals. They were ancient, intelligent, and powerful beyond anything humanity had imagined. They could survive in the vacuum of space. They could breathe fire hot enough to melt starship hulls. They lived for thousands of years, growing larger and more powerful with age. Our mother is very old, Ash said with obvious pride. She has lived for 12,000 years. She remembers when the Galactic Union was first formed. She remembers species that no longer exist. Tried to imagine a creature that old, with that much power. It was almost impossible. The oldest human on record had lived to 147 years. 12,000 years was beyond comprehension. Mother stays on this world because she chooses to, Ember explained. The Union declared it forbidden. They fear us. They know they cannot defeat us, so they avoid us instead. Why doesn't your mother, I don't know, take over? Asked carefully. If they are so powerful, why do you stay hidden here? The three dragons exchanged looks. Power is not the same as purpose, Ash said slowly, as if repeating something he had been taught. Mother says that those who seek to rule others have lost their way. They do not wish to rule, we wish to live, to fly, to watch the stars turn and the ages pass. What would we do with an empire? Empires rise and fall like seasons. We remain. Thought about that for a long time. It was a wisdom that few species in the galaxy seemed to have learned. As the days passed, noticed something changing in the way the dragons talked about him. At first, they had been curious about him as a strange oddity. Now they spoke of him with something like affection. You are different from other species, Spark told him one night, curled up beside his fire. Other creatures fear us or want something from us. You just, like us. You ask nothing. You're good company, said simply, and you've helped me survive. What's not to like? But we are, Ash said, as if this explained everything. We are the most feared beings in the galaxy. Species have waged wars simply to stay away from our territories. And you pet us like we are your companions. Realized he had been doing exactly that, scratching behind Ember's ears while she made a sound like a happy cat, letting Spark curl up against his legs for warmth, sharing his meals with all three of them without a second thought. Where I come from, said slowly, we have a long history of bonding with other species. We used to live with wolves. Wolves are predators, dangerous, wild, powerful, but we learned to live together. The wolves helped us hunt. We gave them food and shelter. Over time, they became dogs, our best friends, our family. You made friends with predators? Ember asked, sounding amazed. We made family of predators, corrected. We've done it over and over. Cats, horses, birds, even dangerous animals, we build sanctuaries for them, we protect them, we raise their orphaned young. Why? Ash demanded. What do you gain from it? Shrugged, sometimes nothing. Sometimes we just do it because it feels right. Because a hungry creature needs food or a lonely creature needs company. It's just part of who we are. The three dragons were silent for a long moment. The galaxy has never met a species like yours, Spark said finally. I think they have made a mistake ignoring you. I think so too, Ash agreed. I think our mother should meet you, Cole. Felt a chill run down his spine. Meeting the baby dragons had been surprising enough. Meeting their 12,000-year-old mother, a creature powerful enough to make the entire Galactic Union afraid, was something else entirely. "I don't think that's a good idea," he said carefully. "But she will love you," Ember said with complete confidence. "She will see what we see, a creature who shares without fear, a creature who gives without taking, a creature who makes family of strangers." Before could argue further, Ash lifted his head and let out a sound, not a roar exactly, but something deeper, something that resonated in his bones and echoed across the forest and into the mountains beyond. "She is coming," Ash said calmly. "Do not be afraid, Cole. We will not let her hurt you." Wanted to point out that 3 baby dragons probably could not stop their ancient mother from doing anything she wanted to do, but it was too late now. The call had been made. Somewhere in the distance, something massive was waking up. Had never known true terror until that moment. He had faced pirates in deep space. He had survived asteroid storms and engine failures and hostile alien encounters, but nothing had prepared him for what was coming. The ground began to shake. At first it was gentle, like a distant earthquake. Then it grew stronger. The trees around the clearing swayed. The water in the river churned and splashed against its banks. Survival equipment rattled and fell over. Then came the shadow. It passed over the clearing like a cloud blocking the sun, but there were no clouds in the sky. Looked up and felt his heart stop beating for a moment. Something enormous was descending from the mountains, something so large that his mind could not immediately process what he was seeing. Wings, wings that stretched wider than his crashed ship was long, a body covered in scales that shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the sunlight in 1,000 colors, a tail that seemed to go on forever, thick and powerful enough to crush buildings, and a head with eyes that burned like stars and jaws that could swallow a shuttle whole. The mother dragon landed at the edge of the clearing, and the impact sent stumbling backward. She was 300 meters from snout to tail, maybe more. She made the baby dragons look like insects by comparison. She made everything look like insects by comparison. The 3 young dragons ran toward their mother, chirping and calling out in excitement. They circled around her massive claws, which were each bigger than its entire body. "Mother, mother, come see. We found something wonderful. He is a human. He shared his food with us. He let us sleep by his fire." The great dragon's eyes, ancient, golden, filled with depths could not fathom, turned to look at him. Each eye was larger than was tall. He felt the weight of that gaze like a physical pressure, as if the air itself had become heavier. He could not move, he could not speak, he could barely breathe. When the mother dragon spoke into his mind, her voice was nothing like the Bobby's voices. Theirs had been bright and curious, like children chattering. Hers was deep and vast, like hearing an ocean speak, like listening to the voice of a mountain. "So, you are the creature my children will not stop talking about." Tried to answer. His mouth opened but no sound came out. "They tell me you crashed on our world 2 weeks ago. They tell me you were injured and alone. And when they approached you, when 3 young appeared before you in the night, you did not run. You did not fight. You did not beg for mercy." The great dragon lowered her enormous head, bringing it closer to the ground, closer too. Hot breath washed over him, carrying a smell like heated metal and ancient stone. "They tell me you gave them food, that you shared your meager supplies with them freely, without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. Is this true, little creature?" Finally found his voice. It came out weak and shaky, but it came. "Yes, they were hungry. I had food. It seemed like the right thing to do." The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly. Could not tell if she was angry or amused or something else entirely. "Do you know who I am, human?" "You are their mother," said, "and you are very large." A sound rumbled through the dragon's chest, a deep vibration that felt in his bones. After a moment, he realized she was laughing. I am the Eternal. I have lived for 12,000 years. I have watched empires rise and crumble to dust. I have seen stars born and stars die. I was ancient when your species was still learning to make fire. She moved closer and forced himself not to step back. Running would be pointless. If she wanted to kill him, she could do it faster than he could blink. In all that time, do you know how many creatures have shown kindness to my children? How many have treated them not as monsters to be feared, but simply as young ones who needed care? Shook his head. None, not one. In 12,000 years across a galaxy of countless species, you are the first. The weight of her words settled over like a heavy blanket. He looked at the 3 baby dragons, who had gathered around their mother's claws, and were watching the exchange with obvious hope. The offered tribute to keep us away from their systems continued. The Empire once sent an army to destroy my nest. I burned their fleet to ash. The Galactic Union made treaties and drew maps and declared our worlds forbidden, all because they fear what they cannot control. Her voice grew quieter, more thoughtful. But you, a small, fragile creature with no weapons and no power, you saw 3 hungry children and thought only of feeding them. You built fires to warm them. You told them stories of distant stars. You treated them as though they mattered. They do matter, said quietly. Every life matters. Was silent for a long moment. Her great eyes studied with an intensity that made him feel like she was reading his entire soul, seeing every memory, every thought, every intention. My children tell me many things about your species, she said finally. They say you make bonds with other creatures. They say you adopt the young of predators and raise them as family. They say you protect beings who can never repay you, simply because you believe it is right. We try, said. We don't always succeed, but we try. The galaxy sees humanity as small and unimportant, a young species barely worth noticing. But my children see something else. They see a creature who gave away his last meal for strangers. They see a being who showed kindness without calculation, compassion without condition. Lifted her head, looking up at the sky where distant stars would soon appear as night approached. I have lived long enough to know that true power is not measured in size or strength or weapons. True power is the ability to change hearts, to inspire loyalty, to make friends of enemies. She looked down at again, and this time he thought he saw something unexpected in those ancient eyes. Respect, maybe even wonder. You have done what no army could do, Cole. You have earned the love of 3 children, and through them you have earned my attention. Did not know what to say to that. He was still trying to process the fact that he was not dead, that this massive creature had not simply eaten him or burned him to ash. The 3 baby dragons bounded over to him, surrounding him protectively, pressing their warm, scaled bodies against his legs. We told you she would like you, Ember said happily. Mother, can we keep him? Spark asked, please. He is not a pet, Ash said with mock sternness, though his tail was wagging like an excited dog. He is our friend. Made that rumbling sound again. Laughter now realized. Yes, she said, I believe he is. And perhaps after all these long ages, it is time for them to have friends again. She settled her enormous body on the ground, her tail curling around the clearing like a living wall. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. In its light, her scales glowed like molten gold. Tell me about your people, Cole, she said. Tell me about these humans who give without taking. Tell me everything. And so, surrounded by dragons under an alien sky, began to talk. He talked about Earth, about humanity's long history, about their failures and their hopes. He talked about wolves becoming dogs, about children who befriended monsters in stories, about a species that had somehow made cooperation and compassion into survival strategies. Listened, and for the first time in thousands of years, an ancient dragon began to wonder if perhaps the galaxy was not as empty of goodness as she had believed. For 3 days talked, listened with patience that only an immortal could possess, asking questions, seeking understanding. The baby dragons curled around like protective guardians, adding their own observations and comments. Told her about Earth, a small blue planet circling an ordinary star. He described oceans and mountains, forests and deserts, the endless variety of life that had evolved there over billions of years. Your world sounds beautiful, admitted, but many worlds are beautiful. What makes your species different? I'm not sure we are different, said honestly. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We don't have natural weapons or armor or special powers. Compared to you, we're incredibly fragile. And yet you survived, pointed out. Your species grew from nothing to spread across dozens of star systems in a mere few thousand years. There must be something. Thought about it. He had never really considered what made humanity special. Most species in the galaxy seemed to think humans were unremarkable, just another young race, struggling to find their place in an old and crowded universe. We bond, he said finally. That's the thing we do better than almost anyone else. We form connections with each other, with other species, even with ideas and places. We attach ourselves to things and refuse to let go. He told her about dogs again, how wolves and humans had found each other in the ancient past and somehow decided that working together was better than fighting. He described how this partnership had changed both species. Wolves became loyal companions who could understand human gestures and emotions. Humans became more social, more cooperative, better at working in groups. You changed each other, said thoughtfully. We always do. Whenever we encounter something new, we try to understand it. And when we understand something, we start to care about it. It's hard for humans to know something deeply and not become attached to it. Ember pressed closer to his side. Is that why you were so kind to us? Because you understood we were just hungry children. Partly, admitted, but also because, well, you were cute. Cute, Ash repeated, sounding almost offended. Sorry, I mean impressive, very fierce and impressive. Laughed her deep, rumbling laugh. The sound echoed across the mountains. Tell me more about this bonding, she said. Give me examples. So told her stories. He told her about a human woman who had spent 40 years living among mountain gorillas, teaching the world that these powerful creatures were gentle and intelligent. He told her about sanctuaries where humans cared for elephants and tigers and bears, predators who could easily kill them, out of pure love. He described how humans had saved species from extinction, rebuilding populations from just a few survivors through decades of patient work. He talked about veterinarians who worked for free, rescue workers who risked their lives for strangers, ordinary people who adopted orphaned animals and raised them as family. You do these things for no reward, asked, no payment, no return. The reward is knowing we helped, said. For most humans, that's enough. He told her about human children, how they naturally reached out to every creature they encountered, how they befriended spiders and snakes and things that other species might consider ugly or dangerous, how they named their stuffed toys and treated them like real friends. Your young ones do not learn to fear. They learn eventually, admitted. The world teaches them caution, but the instinct to connect, to befriend, to love, that comes first. That's built into us from birth. Was quiet for a long time. The twin moons had risen, casting silver light across the clearing. The baby dragons were half asleep, warm against body. I have seen many species in my long life, she said finally. I have watched civilizations build great empires and terrible weapons. I have seen wars that burned entire worlds. I have witnessed cruelty beyond imagination and greed without limit. Her great eyes focused on, with an intensity that made him shiver. But I have never seen a species quite like yours, a species that befriends predators, that protects the helpless, that gives without expecting return. In a galaxy full of fear and violence, your people chose a different path. "We're not perfect," said quickly. "Humans can be cruel too. We've done terrible things throughout our history. Wars, destruction, hatred, we're capable of all of it." "Of course you are," agreed. "You are mortal creatures with mortal failings. But the question is not whether a species can do evil. Every species can do evil. The question is what a species chooses to do when given the option." She lowered her head until her eye was level with, close enough that he could see his own reflection in its golden depths. "When my children approached you in the darkness, you had a choice. You could have run. You could have attacked. You could have hidden and hoped they would leave. Instead, you shared your food. You welcomed them to your fire. You treated them with kindness. That choice," she continued, "tells me everything I need to know about your species. Not that humans are perfect, but that when it matters most, you reach for connection instead of conflict. You choose love over fear." Felt tears prick at his eyes. He blinked them away, embarrassed. "The Galactic Union thinks humanity is insignificant," said. "They see your small fleet and your young colonies and they dismiss you. They do not understand that true power has nothing to do with ships or weapons." She lifted her head again, looking up at the stars. "They have existed for millions of years. We are the most powerful beings in this galaxy. We could destroy whole fleets, burn worlds, make ourselves masters of everything we survey. But we chose long ago not to walk that path. We chose solitude over conquest, patience over violence. We thought we were alone in making that choice," she said softly. "We thought no other species would ever understand. But now—" She looked down at her children, curled happily around a fragile human who had given them everything he had. "Now I see that we were wrong. Your species, so young and so seemingly weak, carries the same wisdom that took us millions of years to learn. Perhaps you found it faster because you are fragile. Perhaps knowing how easily you can be hurt taught you the value of connection, of kindness, of love. Whatever the reason," concluded, "I am glad my children found you, Cole. And I am glad to have learned that humanity exists. The galaxy has been wrong about your people, but the will not make that mistake." Looked up at the ancient dragon, this being who had watched civilizations rise and fall, who held more power than entire space fleets. And he saw in her eyes something he had not expected to find. "Hope." "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Smiled, and yes, dragons could smile, learned in that moment. It was a terrifying sight, all those enormous teeth gleaming in the moonlight. But somehow it was also beautiful. "Now," she said, "we decide what to do about your situation. You cannot stay here forever, much as my children might wish it. And I think perhaps it is time for the galaxy to learn something new." She rose to her feet, her massive body blocking out the stars. "Come with me, Cole. I have something to show you." Carried on her back, flying through the night sky toward the distant mountains. The baby dragons flew alongside them, their smaller wings beating hard to keep up. The wind rushed past face, cold and sharp, but he barely noticed. He was too amazed by the view. Below him, the planet spread out like a living map, forests and rivers and plains, all silver and blue in the moonlight. Above him, the stars burned brighter than he had ever seen them, endless and ancient and beautiful. "This is how we see the universe," said into his mind, from above, from outside, watching the small dramas of mortal creatures play out far below. They landed on a mountain plateau where the air was thin and cold. Before them stood something that made his breath catch in his throat. A ship, but not like any ship he had ever seen. It was massive, not as large as, but larger than any human vessel ever built. Its hull was made of the same metallic substance as dragon scales, shimmering with internal light. Its design was organic somehow, as if it had been grown rather than built. "This is explained, one of the ancient ships my ancestors created, long before the Galactic Union existed. It has waited here for 10,000 years, kept alive by energies your species does not yet understand. Approached the ship slowly, running his hand along its hull. It was warm to the touch, almost like touching living skin. It will take you home, said. It knows the paths between stars better than any navigator. It will carry you safely back to human space. But why, asked, why give me this? Settled on the ground, her children gathering around her. In the starlight, she looked like something from legend, a creature of myth and wonder, impossibly real. Because you have given me something I had forgotten existed, she said. Hope. For 12,000 years, I believed the galaxy was empty of kindness. I believed that all species were driven by fear and greed, that connection was impossible, that trust was foolish. I protected my children from a universe I thought had nothing good to offer. You proved me wrong, she continued. In 3 short weeks you showed my children, and through them showed me, that goodness still exists, that there are creatures in this galaxy capable of love without condition, of kindness without calculation. She reached out one enormous claw and with surprising gentleness touched shoulder. For that gift I give you this ship, but I give you something else as well. She plucked a scale from her own hide, a single scale, larger than's hand, shimmering with inner fire. She pressed it into his palm. This is my mark, she said. Show it to any who threaten your people, that have long memories, Cole. We remember those who wrong us, but we also remember those who treat us with kindness. Let the galaxy know that humanity has earned our friendship. Looked down at the scale in his hand. It was warm, pulsing gently with light, more beautiful than any jewel. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Say that you will remember us, Ember said, pressing close to him. Say that you will come back to visit. Say that you will tell other humans about us, Spark added. Tell them we are not monsters. Tell them we can be friends. Say that you will not forget, Ash said quietly. Say that when the galaxy looks at humanity, they will see what we see. Knelt down and wrapped his arms around all 3 young dragons, pulling them close. They were warm against him, their scales smooth, their hearts beating strong and fast. I will never forget you, he promised, and I will make sure the galaxy knows. I will tell them about 3 hungry children who taught me that kindness crosses all boundaries. I will tell them about a mother who learned to hope again. I will tell them that they are not creatures to be feared, but beings to be respected and honored. He stood and faced one final time. And I will come back, he said, I promise. The journey home took only 3 days. The moved through space in ways could not understand, slipping between stars like a fish through water. When he finally emerged in human-controlled space, the ship delivered him safely to the nearest colony before vanishing back into the void. His report caused chaos. The Survey Corps did not know what to do with his story. The colonial government sent urgent messages to Earth. The Galactic Union demanded explanations. A human had landed on the forbidden planet. A human had befriended the most dangerous species in the galaxy. A human carried the personal mark of the Eternal, a being who had not spoken to anyone outside her world in 10,000 years. The Union ambassadors came to meet with, their expressions a mixture of fear and disbelief. They asked him the same questions over and over. How had he survived? How had he communicated with the dragons? What did they want? They want what everyone wants, told them. To be seen, to be understood, to not be alone. He showed them the scale, and they backed away from it as if it might burn them. Humanity has been given a gift, said. The most powerful species in the galaxy has offered us friendship, not because we threatened them or bribed them or made treaties with them, but because we showed them kindness when they expected fear. Word spread quickly. The story of Cole and the dragons became famous across human space, but more importantly, it made other species take notice. The Galactic Union had always seen humanity as minor players, too young, too weak, too unimportant to matter. Now they looked at this small species with new eyes. What kind of people could befriend dragons? What kind of species earned the respect of immortals through simple kindness? 3 years after returned home, the first official delegation arrived from the dragon world. 3 young Ember, Ash, and Spark, now much larger than when had first met them, came to human space as ambassadors. They were fascinated by everything. They collected human treasures, picture books and music recordings and bags of snack foods. They visited schools, where human children climbed all over them without fear. They attended diplomatic meetings, where they cheerfully terrified Union ambassadors who had spent centuries avoiding their kind. And everywhere they went, they told the same story. The story of a crashed ship and a hungry knight and a strange creature who shared his last meal with children he had never met. Humanity is special, Ember told a gathering of Union diplomats, not because of your technology or your weapons, but because you know how to love, you know how to connect. In a galaxy that has forgotten these things, you remember them. Watched from the back of the room, older now, gray showing in his hair. Beside him stood his daughter, a young woman who had grown up hearing stories of dragons, who had always known that kindness was the greatest strength. "Do you think it will change anything?" she asked him quietly. "Do you think the galaxy will learn?" Thought about waiting patiently on her distant world. He thought about 3 young dragons who had changed his life, and who were now changing the galaxy, one story at a time. "Maybe not today," he said. "Maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, yes, I think it will." He smiled, remembering a fire in an alien wilderness, 3 pairs of glowing eyes in the darkness, and a question that had started everything. "Can we eat your leftovers?" After all, he added, if a scared, injured human can become friends with dragons, anything is possible. Above them, Spark let out a burst of happy flame, and human children cheered. And somewhere across the stars, an ancient dragon watched the news feeds from human space and smiled. The galaxy had gravely underestimated humanity. But finally, they were beginning to understand. Some bonds once formed could never be broken, and some species were special not for what they could destroy, but for what they could build. Humanity had always known this. Now, at last, the rest of the galaxy was learning it too.